All right. Tracy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. And it is 11 o'clock, so we shall go on the record with proceeding 24R-0382TO in the matter of the proposed amendments to the Commission's rules regulating towing carriers for Code of Colorado Regulation 723-6 to implement HB 24-0151. Administrative Law Judge Robert Garby. Today is the 21st of October, approximately 11:01 a.m. This proceeding comes on for a rulemaking hearing pursuant to decision C-24-0647. I will state at the outset, we received no comments, no written comments in this proceeding. So it leaves me kind of, when I'm starting, into a kind of odd place. I'm not quite sure what people liked or didn't like. I'm guessing they liked most of it. But what I'll do is I see we have some folks here. I'll ask you if you want to talk to put your hand up if you know how to do that on the Zoom process. I will call on you if you could state your name and who you're representing when I have you talk, and tell me what you'd like to talk about at that point. I might have some questions for you about if you're asking about different rules. It might be there are different changes that are there. I might not, but hopefully there's we're just trying to get a figure out as to what's going to work and what's not going to work to help implement this new law. So I don't think people want to hear me talk so long, so I'm going to end my talking for right now. And Mr. Connolly, I see your hand up. Mr. Connolly, why don't you turn on your camera there for me and say your name, spell your name, tell me who you're representing.
Garvey, John Conley, Conley's Towing. It's Connolly. I am the president of the Towing and Recovery Professionals of Colorado. The reason you didn't get much comment is because we, at the round table, we were kind of under the impression that we wanted a one voice and not to complicate things, because our last few rule changes have taken years and years. So we figured, if we get it down to maybe one or two people, we could maybe speed this along to where we could maybe get it done this decade instead of next.
Well, Mr. Connolly, I do appreciate the fact that you want to make it easier, and obviously you've worked with me before, so therefore you know that I need it to be easy. So that's
Yes.
very good. So no, I do appreciate that. I appreciate everyone working together to do that. All kidding aside. So, but it's good to see you again. It's been a
Yes.
while since I've seen you.
And really, just, I don't know how you want to do the proceeding. If you want to just bounce around, or do you want to just start from the beginning and go through it?
I'm not sure where you got issues. So you tell me where you want to start. You tell me what you want me to know, and I'll go from that. Because I'm not sure. Like I say, I don't know what. As far as I can tell, everything looks fine.
Yeah, there's a few little minor things. We can go right to the first page,
Okay.
6503. Um,
Okay.
let's see, 6503A. What is it for? The the principal must possess a valid Colorado issued driver's license. This isn't a huge deal, but it has some merits on some. There's some companies out there where the principal is, like, say, in Wyoming, and they don't have a Colorado driver's license, but they own a couple Colorado tow companies. So I don't see where a principal must have a Colorado driver's license. That's kind of I don't know if that's an overreach or just a weird wording, or if it
Well,
was something to do with background checks. Well,
that's
that.
I'm going to say I'm taking a look real quickly. That's my memory of looking through the decision on this that it had to do with background checks. Yeah, purposes to allow more accurate background checks, which
Which
I
they
mean, if
should be
it's
able to do a federal background check pretty easy from that state.
um,
That would probably be Lloyd if he's around here. He does the investigation stuff. He might know the quick answer to that.
And there's Lloyd right there. Lloyd, do you know the answer to that?
Yes, Your Honor, and thank you, John, for bringing this to the forefront. I just had a discussion about this. We've realized some unintended consequences of that language in the proposal, so we are prepared to tweak that a little bit because we are aware of some companies that are on the border states and operate in Colorado, and we are prepared to amend some of that language. We would like to amend some of that language to give us discretion in those circumstances where we know the companies and we know their situation by which they're operating.
Hey, Mr. Swint, would it just be like a state ID or state driver's license? I mean, not necessarily Colorado, but just
Yeah, Title
to facilitate
42
that way.
requires that, you've got to possess a Colorado driver's license once you are gainfully employed or have lived here more than 30 days. So on that premise, and so that we have representatives of Colorado with our permits, we wanted to make sure that we had someone locally that we could find or deal with versus out-of-state investors.
So what kind of tweak would you think would be
Instead
applicable?
of language of saying they are required, like they shall have a Colorado driver's license, that we would change the language to allow us some discretion, like shall, or instead of going from shall to may, or some wording that would soften that requirement slightly to deal with these one-off situations. Just this morning, I ran 3 people from the state of Florida who have no history here whatsoever, and I don't even know where they're coming from, but they want a permit here in this state, and I can't find a thing out about them.
Hey, Mr. Swint, let me ask you, I don't know if you know the answer to this question. I know I don't, and I should. Can you have a Colorado identification without being a Colorado resident?
You can, if you have an ID card, but the problem is with towing, it requires the driving.
Well, but if you're the owner, if you live in Wyoming, if you live in
Right.
Wyoming and you're the owner of the company, if you get a Colorado ID, would that then make it, I mean, would that cover both? You don't need a driver's license.
Right.
I mean, the owner, would need a driver's license if he's driving, but if he's just the owner.
Yeah, as part of the background check, Your Honor, I would find out that information and I would approve it under circumstances like that.
Okay. All right. What do you think, Mr. Connolly?
I think there just needs to be something open there so that Lloyd is able to do his job when he comes across that situation.
What do you mean by open there?
It needs to be some kind of open to where if in this situation, you have a Wyoming owner that owns a tow company in Colorado. I'm assuming his manager that runs the company in Colorado probably has a Colorado driver's license, which would be one thing I guess you could check. But it's got to be open enough to where you don't have to have someone who lives out of state just because they own the company have to have some kind of Colorado driver's license, because I don't think that's the spirit of it. I think it's more of just trying to ascertain information if they're a bad actor, right? You're trying to find out if they've had any towing violations in other states and things like that.
I think a felony convictions. I mean,
Right.
Something like that to prevent. What I mean, can you? I don't know if you could do this. I never really thought about this before. But let's say I live in Laramie, and I own a tow company in Laramie, and I have a driver's license ID in Laramie. Can I come down to the PC here and I want to expand and whatever city is right on the other side of the border and take care of tows there? Could you be a Wyoming-based company and get a Colorado permit?
If you're a Wyoming, it depends what you're doing. If say you're a Wyoming-based company and you're coming into Colorado and picking a vehicle up and taking it back to Wyoming, then you would fall under the UCR interstate, federal interstate type of company. If you are, let's say you're in Laramie, you come into Colorado, you pick something up in Colorado and then drop it in Colorado, then you would have to abide by the intrastate, which would be Colorado rules. You'd have to have a Colorado PUC and et cetera.
But you
But
could, you
You
could get a
could.
permit.
but you're not going to be able to get how would you get a permit if you don't have a Colorado driver's license?
I don't know. That's I was wondering whether, I mean, but you have a
Yeah.
valid driver's license in
You would have a
Wyoming.
valid United States driver's license. So,
Right. That's I mean, I've never seen that before.
right.
And I never really thought of it before. I mean, Mr. Schwint, what if someone did? I mean, would they, if they came in and said, we want to, I don't know, somebody new is going to be there right by the border, and they're they want to get that job.
It would
Could they
fall
do
under that
that?
discretion, Your Honor. We'd have to take that on a case-by-case basis. Let me give another example that I just encountered. A gentleman who's applying for a permit out of Dallas, Texas. His date of birth was in 1935, so that puts him in his late 80s, and I know for sure he's probably not laying under tow trucks in Colorado. So I called his granddaughter, who runs the company, and it's a legacy issue. Warren has had this permit for God knows how many years, and they want to keep his name because he's still alive, but he has no interest in this company whatsoever. So I said, well, if I needed to get in touch with him, I have nowhere locally. He says, well, I'm the representative. Well, we're going to add another grandson to the company and to the permit in Colorado. I said, perfect. As long as we have someone in Colorado with a driver's license that we know we could go and get him if we needed to talk to him, we want to have local representation out of some of these companies, or have a company representative. The guy said to me this morning, he says, I live in Nebraska and I can see Julesburg from my front porch. In a case like that, I would approve that permit because I know that that's a longstanding company. We have no issues with them. And as Mr. Conley said earlier, Your Honor, it's keeping some of the bad actors out.
Right. No, I understand that, and obviously we want to do that.
Sure.
I'm just trying to figure out how to do that. I mean, if you said at least one driver must have a Colorado, I mean, but you don't really care about the driver as much as you care about the owner.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. I mean, if the owner's got 15 felonies that prevent him having a permit, it doesn't matter if his driver's got a Colorado license. It has nothing. I don't. If you're going to use discretion on that, then do you need that?
Yeah, I think we need the discretion on that. And there can't be an absolute on the license requirement, but we want to have some compulsion in there around Colorado representation, or, in the case of adjoining states, how can we extend that privilege to them in an adjoining state? Because we have a few companies like that. And I could, that's something I could work with Nate Riley and John, and we could come up with some mutually agreeable language that would encompass all these companies, because we certainly don't want to exclude the good companies who our law enforcement community depends on, particularly in Julesburg, the example I cite from earlier today.
Okay. Well, I just put this down for right now. What I think I'm going to say is, if perhaps if you're going to get together on that, maybe you propose something, write it, file it, and then consider it. I don't know how many things you're going to have and how big they're going to be as we go on, but I might have that, not continue this hearing, not necessarily end it at the end of the day, if there's more stuff like that. But I'll put a little note on that one right now. All right, Mr. Connolly, what do you got next?
6503C.
Oh, man, you're not getting very far.
Yeah, I know.
I was going to hope like a 6511 or something like that. No. All right. Okay. What don't you like?
I'm confused on the wording when it says each county, the tow carrier has to submit accurate information, current tow trucks it operates, and then each county in which the carrier operates, which that's easy to do. I could just say I operate in Colorado, right? That's all the counties in Colorado. But the annual volume of tows by category. So I don't know a single tow company in the state that keeps track of the tows they do from Jefferson's County to Adams County to, Laramie County. There's so many counties, and how would you keep that information as a tower? So I think that that's going to be kind of hard for towers to do is figure out what county they did every tow in. It's pretty easy. Most towers will keep track of, how many light duty tows they did. They can separate, how many private property tows they did versus law enforcement tows versus maybe consensual tows. Maybe in their categories of light duty, medium duty, or heavy duty. But trying to pinpoint that in a county where every tow happened, that I don't know of anybody that does that. I know I don't.
When you say, well, yeah, it's funny. I talked to Mr. Riley, I think on Friday, and because I said, geez, what do you think people are going to talk about? He mentioned this one and mentioned that might be a problem. I actually mentioned you, and I said, yeah, it'd be Mr. Conlon. He'd just go every county. So thank you for actually saying exactly what I thought you would say on that one.
Yeah.
But so the annual volume of tows by category. So that's kind of vague. I'll give you that. But
Well,
you don't
yeah,
know how many
if counties is part of the category, then that could be a problem there. So, I mean, if they came up with multiple categories, that would not be one that I would say is a good one.
Okay, so each county that everyone operates in, you don't have a problem with that one.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So the annual volume of tows by category, that's where you have the issue, right?
Right. If they're gonna put county as a category, because there's no description on category. Like, is it a medium duty, a light duty, a heavy duty? That would be more like categories, or maybe law enforcement, private property, or consent. Those would be categories. But it bothers me the way it's worded there, because that would be county. That'd be really hard to do.
Well, that surprises me. That's hard to do. I mean, I assume you know where each tow starts from.
Sure.
And that would tell you the county right away. I mean,
right.
So I would assume you'd put that. I mean, I don't know what.
But what if it goes? Let's say I pick one up in Jefferson County and I drop it off in Adams County. Then how do I log it? Do I log it as an Adams County tow or a Jefferson County tow?
I would imagine that you'd have two different categories potentially of where did I pick up the tow and where did I drop the tow.
Right.
That would I mean,
and that would mess up your number though, because then you would get you did work in, if you did one tow from Jefferson County to Adams County, and then you logged it as one tow in Adams County and one tow in Jefferson County, you would have number of two when it's actually just one.
Well, you could do it one of two ways. You just care where you started the tow. So
right.
Then or you could have two columns, which is tow start, tow end county. I mean, it wouldn't be that complicated.
Well,
how many trips? I could do it real simply and go. I went on 4 vacations this year. Okay,
right.
All 4 of them started in Denver, and I went to 4 different places. So how many trips did I go on? Did I go on 8? No, I went on 4 different trips. I mean,
sure.
So I know that I went one in Florida and one in California and one in Nevada and one in
right. Well, if we were doing 4 tows, that would be pretty simple to do. But if I'm doing 20,000 tows, how do I gotta somehow get my computer? Yeah, you'd have to have a computer program somehow separating their location into counties, which mine's not that way. I don't know of anybody's that does that.
Well, I mean, you'd have to set it up that way. I don't think 20. I mean, I don't think it matters if it's 10 or if it's 20,000. I mean, you can do it or you can't. I mean, if you got an Excel spreadsheet, it doesn't matter how many columns you got. It matters that you have the columns.
Right.
So so you would have no problem. I mean, if you have a category of I've got Mr. Riley up there, so I'm gonna Mr. Riley, why don't you pop in here?
Hi, good morning. Nathan Riley, the Section Chief of Transportation at the Colorado PUC, speaking on behalf of transportation staff, last name Riley. So, yeah, I think the intent here with this particular rule, back to the category conversation, I believe the intent there is when we're referring to categories, we're referring to the type of tow. So we're talking about law enforcement order tow, non-consensual tow, consensual tow. I don't think the intent here at all was to further require each tow to be captured by county. I think when looking at these and the different things we would be putting here as a requirement for operational data to be submitted, it all kind of stems from a more general perception, like general data that is to be collected here. And so, the number of tow trucks, that's pretty self-explanatory. Each county, I think we're just trying to better gauge where the tow trucks that have licenses are operating, or at least the general area. Is something I think the commission would be interested in knowing about. And then again, the annual volume of tows by category. Let's say the annual volume of tows for a particular carrier was 7,800 tows in a given year. Let's just imagine that. To specify the annual volume of tows by category, again, working off of that 7,800 total value, let's say 5,100 of them are law enforcement ordered, and maybe 2,100 are non-consensual, and then the remaining 600 are consensual. That's what we would be looking for. Or maybe a particular towing carrier doesn't even engage in multiple categories. Maybe they only operate in one or two. So maybe for that same 7,800, 5,800 are law enforcement ordered and 2,000 are non-consensual, and then 0 are consensual. That's also possible. So I think that's another intent here, is to just better gauge the licensed towing carriers that we have, kind of what they're doing, and not getting too deep into the weeds on that, but just having a general perception. Because if somebody came and asked me right now, how many non-consensual tows are done in Colorado, in the past year, I would have no idea. And so I think this is an idea to get us a better set of knowledge, at least at the base level, so that we can better answer those types of questions, but also to make that information available to the commission for more policy type considerations when they have a better picture of the tow industry and what they're actually doing.
Hey, Mr. Riley, so you make it law enforcement, consensual, non-consensual. Would that be would you say those three? Would it be anything more?
Yeah, and I think the language here that we drafted was just to make it as simple as possible, but I'm seeing the concern about not clarifying what a category is. So if it helps everyone to really spell that out, I think we'd be comfortable redrafting it in a way that would eliminate that concern if that's what the industry would like. I don't see any major concerns with making that change, that kind of a change.
And any more categories in those three?
No, I think that typically the way I look at it is there are three primary types of tows here in Colorado: law enforcement ordered, consensual, non-consensual. And so I think a lot of our regulations are based off of those three primary categories. And again, you see that in Rule 6508 for how different tows are authorized. You can kind of read through the lines and see what those three primary categories are, although we haven't technically spelled them out anywhere else to my knowledge. But yeah, I think they're still all, well, except for maybe consensual, I think they're all defined somewhere, either in statute or in rule. So, but I think everybody understands what a consensual tow is.
Okay, yeah, I think so. Well, I think the tow industry would certainly be able to determine what they think is that. But you don't think there's any necessity for county?
No, yeah, and I heard that as the primary concern, was that the thought was towing carriers are not tracking their tows by county. And I know there was the example of a cross county tow, so it originates in one county and terminates in another county. Yeah, no, I do not believe the intent here was to try to capture that. Again, for that particular aspect, which is the second item in this list of items, I think we're just looking at, as more of a general sense, what counties is the towing carrier operating in? And again, depending on where they are based, it could be their immediate county and like 3 immediately surrounding counties. But like Mr. Conley said, there could be towing carriers that operate in a wide swath of counties across the state. And if that's the case, then they could just list all those counties. I think we're just trying to get a better picture of the towing carriers who are licensed, kind of the general area where they're operating, not necessarily to boil any or to go any further down than that. Their
primary county.
Well, I think we were looking for more than just a primary county, because I think that's something we could probably glean from where you're based. The physical address you have on file, we have a general sense of where you're based. But I think we were trying to get a better idea of kind of the areas, plural, of where towing carriers are operating. So
Sure.
again, I think in a lot of cases, most towing carriers in the state are going to be operating in their immediate county and maybe one or two adjacent counties, but that's it probably. And so I think we're just trying to get an idea of, for coverage and other considerations, we're trying to get a feel for where people are operating. Because again, it's a statewide permit. And so it allows you to operate everywhere. And so because of that, we don't really have any specific indication of kind of what kind of coverage is available in different areas and things like that. And again, I think the commission could benefit from having that kind of information available, when they're considering, various policies and things when it comes to towing regulation.
Sure.
Okay, so I think that should
That clears that up.
work. That, yeah, okay, and I agree. I think that should be. I think just by category is kind of too vague, and I think we can work something in there.
And then you guys can work on like a category list, and we can work together with industry to find out if the category list is.
Yeah, like I said, what I'm going to recommend, like I say, is with the other rule. I mean, if you have ideas of what you think should be there, that'd be great. And I see Rob, and I don't know who you are, Rob, but you got your hand up, so I'm going to let you to pop in here if you want to. And I'm going to have
Thank you. My
say
name's
your
Rob
name.
Mooney. I'm with Denver West Towing. And,
Okay,
and the only thing I think,
hang on. I've got a court reporter, so you gotta say your name slowly and spell your name slowly, so my court reporter can know who you
Sure.
are and take it.
My
over.
name is Rob Mooney, Mooney. I'm with Denver West Towing.
Okay, now go ahead. I'm sorry about that. I just have to watch out
Absolutely.
for my court reporter.
That's my bad. I apologize. The only thing I think that also needs to be probably put into the equation here, that understand what Nate and so forth and is stating that they're looking for. And I don't think there's ever an issue with getting data to the commission from the industry, because it has positive effects for us as well. I think the biggest issue needs to be understand that our industry, and not all of them, but I'm going to say a larger majority, I'm going to say, and I think this is a very conservative number, 75% are using some form of electronic dispatch / tracking now. And sometimes having an extra category outside of what's required in other states. And actually, I kind of spoke to some people. We use Towbook, and they actually are stating there's no other area that they're aware of that's requesting that. So tracking by county, when the industry is looking for that as a whole, they have no problem. And I'm not saying they won't make exceptions. They did that for the city and county of Denver when they worked with the city and county of Denver. But as an individual, as in like a standard, that might not be something they would be willing to do. And trying to track that outside of our current software would be a real nightmare.
Well, and you're talking about county, and I think we're kind of moving off county. But that's not
I
that
understand.
important.
I'm just saying, if that becomes that situation, I just figured that should be in that notation as well.
Well, let me ask you this: with the software currently, is there any problem tracking consensual, non-consensual, and law enforcement?
No, you can do that.
Okay, great. That's great. I mean, I think at least we're on the same page here. So that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Anything else?
Thank you.
Seriously, anything else comes up, please. And that goes for anyone. If there's some subject that you can help, or get your hand up, and I'll get you in the conversation, or you can leave it to Mr. Connolly if you want to. Mr. Connolly, where'd you go?
I'm still here.
Okay. All right. I think we're down. That's 2 down. Let's go to number 3.
All right. Actually, I didn't have too much other than, hold on, I gotta find the page. It's way back there.
Hey, now we're talking.
Yeah, Speedy here.
Well, good. And certainly while you're doing that, I mean, I want to thank, the task force and everyone who worked on this. I mean, it makes me happy when I see that there's not a whole bunch of problems. Not that anyone cares whether I'm happy, I'm sure, but
I gotta find it. It's the signage.
oh, okay.
There it is. Last page. So it is 6513. D.
6513D, okay.
Now, there's no proposed change here, which 1051, House Bill 1051 changed the responsibility of the signage to the property owner. Here in D, it says that the tow carrier shall post the signage. And it doesn't, so that's wrong. It's the tow carrier needs to verify that the property owner has posted the signage.
Well, let me ask you real quickly. Do you generally provide the signs to the place,
That's
or
how
do
it
they-
used to be until they changed everything.
I mean,
The
just
towers
based-
used to do that.
It's based upon the uniformity that I see with towing signs. I assume that was the case.
Right.
So, do you? I mean, and realize the commission has no jurisdiction over the property owners. So, if you, I mean, you want to change that to be that the property owner's responsibility for the
For the signage, and put it to where the tow carrier is required to verify that the signage has been posted. The tow carrier still needs to verify that the property is properly posted, etc., to do the job. But it's no longer the tower's responsibility after that House Bill 1051.
Okay, I'm trying to think how this would work then. If investigator goes out there, sees there's no signage, okay, and so does the tow carrier get written up for improper signage then?
Well, yeah. So if there's no signage and the tower tows off that property without signage, well, then he's in trouble because he didn't verify the signage was posted.
So he has to verify.
Yeah, I would say that the tow carrier must verify that the signage is appropriately posted.
It's interesting. I'm trying to think about how that would work. I'm thinking in a legal sense how that's proven. I guess it just would be the same thing. Is it there or not?
Right.
And if it's not there, then you didn't. Well, I mean, the question becomes then, I had it up there, but it was gone. But you have that situation now. Anyway,
Right.
yes. Okay, Mr. Riley, what do you think?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, this has been tricky because Mr. Connolly's not incorrect. The statute does allocate the responsibility of signage being posted at private property to the property owner. In fact, if you look at 4010.14053C, it does say in order for a towing carrier to conduct a non-consensual tow, the property owner must have posted signage, and then it lists the criteria that's here in Rule 6513. Having been modified for some of the statutory changes. So yes, it has been a little tricky to obviously allocate any kind of regulatory responsibility to a non-jurisdictional party, which is the property owners. Obviously, the commission does not and has not had any regulatory authority or jurisdictional oversight over the property owners and what they're doing or not doing. And while we have full regulatory oversight over towing carriers, it's almost like a one step removed approach. And so typically what we do is we work with the towing carriers to make sure they understand what the criteria is, what they have to, what different criteria has to be met in order to perform a legitimate tow from a private property. And so we always encourage towing carriers to work with the property owners to have those discussions and at times notify the property owners of where the boundaries are or what they can and cannot do. And so something like this with signage, which historically has been more the responsibility of the towing carriers, was tweaked to be more of a property owner responsibility, I think dating back as far as House Bill 2213-14, I think is when that language initially got put in to the statute I just read you, which admittedly was tweaked as part of House Bill 241051 more recently. But I think at the end of the day, our primary concern is that the notice, which is what the signage is it's providing notice to people who may come to the private property and park. is present. I think that's our primary concern. The statute, as Mr. Kindly indicated, does require the property owners to do that. But at the same time, there is also criteria that's to be listed on the signage, such as the towing carrier's name and phone number, which kind of makes it a little weird that that would be the property owner's responsibility, considering the signage contains the specific towing carrier's information. But that's kind of a separate conversation. I think what we usually encourage towing carriers to do is to work with the property owners, and like Mr. Conley said, to verify that all criteria has been met and that no restrictions are being breached in order to engage in a particular towing event. And again, one may be okay and another may not, depending on the exact circumstances. So I personally don't have any issue with tweaking at least the initial language at the beginning of 6513D to kind of capture that distinction. But as long as everybody understands, it's probably not going to change how this rule is enforced, which is if all the criteria has not been met, even if one of the criteria not being met is not the responsibility specifically of the towing carrier is still essentially opening themselves up to being cited for a particular violation. Now, how we would go about doing that, it's going to depend on the circumstances. But again, since we only have regulatory oversight over the towing carriers, we only have the ability to allocate responsibility to them in a lot of different cases. And so I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, no, Mr. Conley, I tell you, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I put that in there, the more I like it. That it makes sense to me. Obviously, the property owner has the responsibility to post. It says that. So in this rule where it says the towing carrier enters an agreement with the property owner to not consensually tow motor vehicles shall post. Well, it's not their tow responsibility to post. And so you can't have that. But if you change that shall verify signage at the I think that does work. And now you can't, if it's not there, you haven't verified it's there before the tow occurs. And
Right.
so if a tow occurs, there's no signage there. You didn't verify it. You didn't have to post it, but you need to have it verified before the tow occurs. And I think that would work. I'm trying. I'm looking to make sure it's enforceable. And
Yes.
and I think that it's then incumbent upon the towing carrier to go to the property owner and go, hey, listen, you got to get this up here, or I can't tow from your property.
Right. Yeah, simple. Just change the word post to verify.
Yeah.
And that cures it all.
That's exactly what I did. I put a caret in there and put that word in there. I read it through and I went, yeah, I think that works pretty good. So no, that's great. I think that I don't think I'm going to say, if you're writing anything, you don't worry about that one. I think that's one I'll discuss with Mr. Riley later, but I think that would work. Mr.
Those
Riley,
are my highlights.
I mean, just check with Mr. Riley one more time. Based upon what you said, I assume that would work. But I mean, do you think if we just change post, shall verify signage at the applicable private property, that would work?
I'm just not sure if we would need to elaborate further, because we have heard of issues where maybe, especially at the front end, when a particular towing carrier is creating and establishing that relationship with a private property owner, likely through a contract, in most cases. Obviously, on the front end, there's going to be a lot more attention to this proper signage being posted in appropriate ways and in appropriate places, and making sure the signage meets all the criteria and all of that. But depending on how long these contracts last, there are occasions, or at least we've heard of occasions, where the signage maybe is present at the beginning, but over time, maybe a sign gets damaged or pulled down and not replaced properly and all of that. And there's a variety of circumstances that can lead to that, where someone from our enforcement team may go to do a property survey and they may see signage on, like, maybe there's 4 primary entrances and they see signage at 3 of them, but one doesn't have it. And that's enough to violate the situation. So I think we would just have to consider potentially clarifying that it's just not an initial verification that signage is there. It's an ongoing and continuous verification to make sure the signage is always there. Because again, this signage is the primary feature that allows towing carriers to tow vehicles on a more immediate basis when that doesn't conflict with anything else. And so the notice being provided, which is pretty much 100% of the time done through signage like this, it has to be there, and it has to be there when they're towing on any particular given day or night. And so as long as we can, I guess, either, and again, whether we need additional language to capture that that's the case, I didn't want to potentially paint us into a corner where, as long as they can establish that they did an initial verification, then now they've met the criteria for the duration of the contract. I think I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, so June 1st, they go out there and verify all the signs, or they're in June 2nd to take all the signs down and put it in the new place where they got a contract. Yeah, if you make it, shall verify signage at the applicable private property before any tow originates. I mean, if you do that, and so no tow can occur if it doesn't happen. Would that, you think that, or some language to the effect of that, like we can tweak it a little bit, but before any tow can be conducted, the signs shall have at a minimum and have that. So they have to verify it's there before any tow can occur.
Yeah, or initiated or conducted, yeah, I think any of those might work, but I think we can kind of fiddle with that a little bit.
Yeah. What do you think, Mr. Conley? Does that, if some sort of
yeah, I mean, if as long as the tower has to verify the signs are there, like all the time, right?
Right.
Anytime they tow, anytime they enter somewhere, they got to verify the signs are there.
Yeah, I mean,
and then if the signs aren't there, they can simply tell the property owner, "Hey, you don't have signs posted here. I can't tow."
Right, and there's nothing to prevent, in my opinion, too, the towing carrier making sure that they do have it there. Even though it says that the towing carrier can still provide the signs and actually put the signs up if they wanted to, just to make sure that they can not you sign the contract, you say, hey, put the signs up to the property owner. Property owner sits on the signs for 2 weeks. I mean, you can go out there and put, I mean, as long as it's okay with the property owner, you can put them up there so you can get started.
Well, I'm trying to get away from the property owners understanding that they can't just wipe their hands of it and go, it's just someone else's problem. They need to grab hold of some of this problem themselves and understand they have parts to do. And when you put in there that the tow carrier shall post the signage, that just gives your property owners another avenue of throwing away some of their responsibilities. No, and I think they need to be more in part of the responsibilities.
Well, and I got to tell you, if that's in there and someone writes up a CPAN based upon that, if it's in front of me, I'm going to say, hey, no, the law says it's not the responsibility of the tow carrier.
Right.
But if it says you must verify,
that's the key.
On you then. That's on you. So
and that's a good fail safe just to make sure everyone's checking everything.
Yeah, no, I think that works. You can't do the tow unless you have verified that the signage is proper and it's up to date and visible and so forth.
Yep.
You said that's it?
That's all I had. Those were my highlights.
Okay, what are your lowlights?
That I really didn't have any. I mean, most of it is in the bill, so there's not a lot that we can change there because the bill was the bill, and so we kind of have to follow the statutes. So that's it.
That's good. That's good. If you have nothing else, well, first off, thank you very much, Mr. Conley.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate it. Like I say, I don't know if you want to get the task force together or you want to talk to Mr. Swint or you want to talk to whoever on the first, really only the first one. You can, if you want to, you can on 6503C, if you have ideas on that about what, but I think we're pretty good on just consensual, non-consensual, and law enforcement being the categories. That can be stuck in there however we want to. Oh, Rob's want me back. Okay.
I would just
Mooney, what do you got? Huh?
Go ahead.
I guess Mr. Mooney real quick. Wait, what do you got for me? Mr. Mooney. If you're talking, you're still muted.
I should have clicked harder. I'm sorry.
That's what she said. Come on.
Okay. With that being said, the only thing else it's not really per se, and it was more for a clarification, but we're having a lot of situations where towers are doing large recoveries, getting things done. They have an issue, say, with notification. And at that point, they're not supposed to collect storage and so on and so forth. Yet when there's a mistake's been brought to light, they're asked to refund the whole bill in full. So when you have a $3,000-4,000 or a truck wreck could be $15,000-20,000 recovery, and everything in the recovery, everything is done properly, the law enforcement tow is done properly, but yet it gets down to the notification. I can understand them not being able to charge storage, but being asking the tow company to completely make that tow free of charge for something that happens after the fact of the actual tow or recovery, I don't quite see where in one specific area by rule it says that that's okay to happen, and we'd just like to get a little more clarification on that.
Is there a particular rule you're looking at for that?
Well, I'll be honest, I can't find a rule that does that, so maybe Nate could enlighten on that, or Lloyd.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you the one I think it might be. And that's going to be the non-compliance one. And it actually starts way above there. Do you have the rules in front of you?
It's 6511F, sir.
6511, okay. Yeah, that's, and Mr. Riley, I'll ask you, that sounds like a non-compliance
But in
violation.
so under that though, as far as realistically, at that point, you know, from that point forward, I could see them not being able to collect their bill. But to give their bill up in full for something that happened later on in that process, I just think that's a little drastic.
Mr. Riley, what do you think? I want to ask you first before I say anything.
Thank you, sir. I believe we have a statutory issue here. So as part of House Bill 2213-14, they made modifications to Part 4 of 4010.1. While this has been a long-standing regulatory mechanism that the commission has used for at least as long as I've been at the commission, 2012, or maybe even before that, we did have latitude, I think, at that time where we could make adjustments to that mechanism and tweak it in the ways the commission saw fit. Now I think we're running into an issue with how they put it into the statute, again, as part of House Bill 2213-14. Specifically, if you look at 4010.1406, and again, I would keep in mind, since that is in the 406 statute and not the 405 statute, it would apply to all types of tows that we regulate. But basically, it makes reference to if a towing carrier fails to comply with this Article 10.1, so anything that's in our towing statutes, but also Article 20 of Title 38 and Parts 18 and 21 of Article 4 of Title 42, which is the abandoned motor vehicle sales statutes up to and including notification. It says that if any violation of those statutes or any rule promulgated by the commission shall not charge or retain any fees or charges for the services performed with respect to the vehicle. So that, I think, while the commission may have had jurisdiction and flexibility to modify this particular provision in the past, I think now we are stuck with what the statute says.
Yeah,
So it's
Mr.
statutory thing is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's, I honestly, I really can't disagree wholeheartedly with you on that concept, but statutorily, sometimes our hands are tied on what we can do. I know actually Mr. Connolly, the first time I talked to Mr. Connolly back when I did the rulemaking a few years ago, that's one of the things actually I changed so that it was not necessarily mandatory. I put there used to be a shall in front of it, and shall means the judge is required to do stuff, and I made a change to it, made it a may, based on different things. But statutorily,
Judge, you're very low. Could you speak up, please?
Oh, sorry. I think statutorily there's our hands are kind of tight, and I have Mr. Swint's hand up, so let me go to him real quick.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to point out that what Rob is talking about, and also Nate, I agree with both of them. But from an investigative standpoint, we've had some issues arise where carriers, by their statutory obligations to clean up accident scenes, have incurred some very high expenses sometimes to do that statutory obligation. So this definitely warrants taking a look at it, but I think it's going to have to be looked at from a statutory change perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, Mr. Mooney, I got to tell you, like I said, a few years ago when I looked at this, and I've had a rule on these sort of things, and I see a toe that's fairly decent. I mean, really everything's pretty good at the toe. Only something minor is at fault on it, and I kind of never understood why. The guy's parked in a handicap spot, and the tow operator did something slightly wrong. I'm not a real big fan of giving money back to a guy parks in a handicap spot. And so I honestly, I understand where you're coming from on it. But there's a lot of rules that we have, and there's a lot that I'm not real big fan of, not necessarily in the towing world, but in different areas too that we regulate that. Well, we're stuck based upon what the statutory language is. And
Right.
certainly one I want to look at, and I'll take a look at it again for you. I promise you I will do that.
Thank you so much.
Because like I said, I mean, really, I say I'm not a big fan of people parking handicap spots.
Right.
So
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks.
all right. Do we have anyone else that wants to speak on any of the other proposed rules we have? Mr. Swins, you have your hand up, but I don't think you want to speak. And there it goes. What do we have? Mr. Riley, I want to talk to you for a minute if I can. And I'm going to propose, Mr. Connolly, you listen to what I'm going to propose that we do. I'm going to continue this hearing, I believe, if there's nothing else here today. And we'll give Mr. Connolly, Mr. Swin, how long do you think, if you want to tweak on that language on the 65034, and holidays are coming up and stuff like that. And I know Mr. Connolly wants these rules out quick, so we'll try and get them as quick as we can. So I don't want to give you 2 months if you only need 2 weeks. So
I can do it right now. How about at least principal must possess a United States driver's license? Done.
Write it down and file it. Write it down and file it for you, Mr. Connolly. You're not getting out that easily.
Your Honor, we will, I'll get with Mr. Connolly and we'll get this done as quickly as we possibly can.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I got a calendar up here real quickly. Let me look. Let's say that my mouse isn't working. Let's see, today's 20th. How about on the 4th? We give it 2 weeks. How about the 4th? We get something filed by the 4th, and then we'll take a look at it. I don't know if we want, Mr. Riley, do you think we need to schedule another hearing? What do you think? It's kind of in a middle ground for me. I mean, unless I see, I mean, I don't want to say we don't, because I want to see what's proposed and filed, but
yeah, I think anytime we are modifying whatever was initially drafted, it probably doesn't hurt to have another hearing.
yeah,
Is kind of my thought.
yeah. I tell you, why don't we file those by the 4th, and then we'll issue it. And why don't we wait? Do you want to wait till we get that, or do you want to put a date out now, Mr. Riley? What do you think?
I mean, I think we could get something filed even before the 4th. The question is, would you prefer that we have modifications to not just 6503C, which I think is the one we were planning to meet with them on, but what about some of these other rules that have been brought up?
Yeah, well, here's what I think. We'll give it to the 4th to file something on any of the rules. That doesn't, you're not limited to that, but if something else comes up and you want to do that. We'll take that into consideration, and we can put out some new red lines shortly after that. It won't be too massive, and then have a hearing. The hearing might be 5 minutes, where everyone goes, "Hey, it looks good." But how about if we do that? And so then, if that's there the 4th, we can, like I say, Mr. Riley, we can work on tweaking the other ones just putting the categories down and the signage change. That's not going to take long. Then issue out something after that, and probably perhaps I would say the 1st of December or something like that. I don't know how much notice we have to give. There might be. You probably know that better than me, Mr. Riley. I get these things after they're noticed and put out, so I don't know. Do we need like 30 days notice and put it itself? This will be.
I think it's 20.
Something like that. So, I mean, we can do it right away, though.
Yeah, I think we can draft up some of the language tweaks that we've talked about today. I think we can get that together fairly quickly.
I gotta say, I mean, we can get it before, we can get our end done before the 4th, and that stuff can come in, and then we can just finish it off and probably issue something out the week of the 4th would be my bet, and then put a hearing out, whatever, as soon as we can after that, whatever the statutory limit is on that, and then hopefully we got nothing more. Does that sound like a plan?
It does, sir.
Good to me.
Okay, all right. Thank you again, Mr. Conley. Appreciate it. Thank you. The last time I had a hearing with you, you used a bad word, and you didn't this time. So I'm very proud of you.
I've been practicing.
I'm very proud of you. Did it make me happy? But no, truly, thank you very much for your participation and your help on this. I really do appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you for everyone else who's joined us here, who's watched, and anyone else. If you have something that you see in a rule, if you want to file it by the 4th, you're welcome to do that as well too. I'm happy to read. We'll consider everything there. So we will continue. I'm not going to adjourn this. I'm going to be recessed now because technically I have to do that so we can continue to another hearing. But we'll be done for today. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.